It was a bad idea. It was a bad idea. Sorry, go ahead.
Hi. Okay. Sorry for the delay. We had some technical difficulties. I think I might still be on a delay. So my lips are moving, but the words that are coming out of my mouth may not be matching. And we're going to embrace the imperfections and just march forward with the celebratory news. Stephanie Lucrezio coming to you live with Tamira Besman, Ayla Wolf, and Anna Lopez. And tonight, instead of preparing you for the day ahead tomorrow in Trenton, we get to quickly celebrate how freaking powerful and amazing we actually are as a group of dedicated moms and dads and people that are committed to medical freedom. What a difference dedication, hard work, and a little bit of effort can make in just a couple of days. So we wanted to come tonight to just congratulate and thank all of the people that were activated in the last couple of days, and just to explain to you why we're no longer going to Trenton tomorrow. I love how she comes in here and says this. I don't have a small child, but I have my dog.
Of my dog last night.
So we want to give you some updates on things that are going to be happening, what our strategy is as we move forward with staying vigilant, because we never want to give the message that we're in the clear. There is no such thing as clear. As long as they're in session, there's always the possibility that we need to be watching. So I want to turn it over to Pamira first to explain a little bit about the legislative process and how, you know, a bill becomes a law, and just because this bill was taken off the agenda today, why people still need to be concerned.
Yes. So definitely very good reasons to celebrate and be happy and take a breath. We have officially received confirmation with the new agenda, and the bad bill S2814 is definitely not on the agenda. So our voices have been heard, but that doesn't mean we take a vacation. So this just gives us a little bit of time to breathe and recoup, and we've gained some ground on the battlefield. Let's just use that to our advantage and then keep going forward. So we have to stay awake and diligent and smart and try to stay one step ahead, because if we understand what they're doing, how they're doing, we're going to be able to watch better what we're looking for. So the legislative process, very simplistically, needs to move from two parts of the legislature, the Senate and the Assembly. So a bill gets introduced in either house, and then it needs to go through its committees and get approval, and then be approved by each house on the general floor. So every bill must, before it can become law, must have a companion bill. So this bill that we were fighting this week particularly was the Senate version, and it actually has a companion version, the assembly, which is A4453. So we have halted the Senate version. That doesn't mean it's dead. That doesn't mean it's never going to come back. Now, luckily for us, the Senate version only had one primary sponsor and no co-sponsors, and that was Senator or Governor Cody, as he was governor for a while, so he sometimes goes by that. The Assembly version, however, has already gone through one committee, and it has a lot of support. It has a lot of co-sponsors. So we definitely must keep a very close eye on the Assembly and keep diligent. We must start educating the Assembly, and we must start voicing our opposition. That one moved under the radar. We didn't even know it was happening before it was approved. So we need to constantly familiarize ourselves with what is happening on the NJ Legislature website, constantly check the agenda, what's on the agenda. Sometimes, like, the first time we ever see a bill is when it hits the agenda, because there's really no feedback loop. Our legislators usually don't reach out to us and say, hey, we're considering a new bill. What do you think? Can we get your thoughts about that? Wouldn't that be fantastic in a representative democracy where they're supposed to be voicing us and representing us? Well, it goes the other way around. We find out about it and we're like, oh, no, we didn't ask for that. So
I almost set on fire yesterday. I was so sad about this bill that I put a tea kettle on in my kitchen with no water in it, and it was like 15 minutes waiting for it to go off. I'm like, why isn't it whistling? the thing melted. The entire thing melted because my brain was like mush worrying about this because we just don't know what they're doing. So we really have to keep an eye. And, you know, you can follow bills on NJ Ledge. You can go on and sign up to get notifications. It's so important to familiarize yourself with that website. So thank you so much for explaining, because September 17th is when that assembly bill went through, and I didn't even know that it happened. We were so focused on the flu mandate bill, and that's how the flu mandate for the healthcare workers went through last year, because we were so focused on the religious exemptions. So the truth is that getting involved with the legislative process is something that we all need to familiarize ourselves with to some extent or another. You do not have to be an expert, but you need to be able to at least navigate the website and be able to look for specific bills, see what's on the agenda, and just get that basic understanding. Because the truth is, there are a lot of things happening under the radar that we don't know about. So the only way we know is to follow.
And to that point, you know, I woke up in the morning and a mom had just called me and she's like, I just got an email this morning and this bill and this other bill and this other bill. And I'm like, what? So this particular mom had called me in tears, I don't know how many times, because she wasn't going to be able to get her kids to go back to school. She felt hopeless. She's trying to move from New Jersey. Her kids are special needs kids and they can't wear masks, so they have to wear face shields. It's very difficult for her. She's working 2 jobs right now. Because she had to have the kids home during COVID and she had to pay for extra healthcare. So just all this other stuff. And she was feeling so depressed and defeated and like, we're never going to win. We're never going to get anywhere. And then she calls me and she's like, this bill just went on the agenda. And, you know, they're going to do masks. And so I'm looking at the bill and immediately, you know, we're activated and we're calling people and we're calling other moms and we're all together and, you know, we form a team and a coalition and we sort of just, we shields up. I put a meme up today, like we have Vikings. Shields up, you know, time to fight. Let's go. And, you know, I talked to her today and I told her that we didn't have to go tomorrow because it was pulled. And she like almost cried. She was like, I made a difference. She made a difference. She did make a difference. I'm like, you are a part of this. You are a part of our team because you watched that bill. You watched the agenda. You told us. You got us going hours before we would probably have seen it. I mean, she, you know, started early in the morning because she is a hawk and she can't come to our rallies. She can't do the things that other moms can do, but she could watch the bills. And we spoke and I'm like, if that's what you can do, that's what you need to do for us. And you're part of the team. And I'm so proud of her. And I'm so proud of every single mom that called and emailed and tweeted and every single dad and all our Kairos and, you know, everyone on our team,
Parents,
everyone that actually signed up to testimony, you know, to log their opposition, but also to testify against this thing. Because we know that that's what clogged this bill up, right? Is all the people that were signed up to testify. They had no time for 40 people to testify against this bill. They didn't plan on this opposition. They didn't plan on 400 or 500 calls against this bill. They didn't plan for any of that. Each and every one of you that made those calls and said, I'm going to give my testimony is the reason this happened. I mean, we're all together. We're an army. And I'm so proud of everyone. And like Pamir said, this is not over. This is a stay. Like we're going to war, but we get to strategize a little bit more now because they're back there strategizing and adding amendments and all this other stuff, and they're going to bring it back. And so now it's time that we have a little time to breathe. Like Stephanie always says, let's breathe. But I'm really, you know, like we're going to breathe and we're going to plan. But I'm so proud of us. I had another mom call me today, and she was really furious. So there was a bus that was going to a soccer game with a bunch of kids on it from that school, and she doesn't want to be named, so she's not going to post it. But a boy on this bus was stopped by the police. The police stopped this bus. They went on the bus and they pulled a boy from the soccer team off the bus because someone he knew tested positive for COVID. So they literally called the police to stop this bus that was on the way to the soccer game to pull this boy off the bus. This is policing of our children, right? So that's what this bill has to do with. Be policing us constantly if we're not wearing a mask. I mean, this boy was they could have called his parents. right? They could have said, can you meet the bus? They could have gone to the game and called his parents and let him wait all by himself, like isolated in the locker room. But they called the police to go on the bus in front of the other kids and pull this poor kid. We're so nervous about having a pimple on our face at that age, and yet the entire bus watched the police drag him off the bus.
And they're not taking into consideration the social emotional, part of it, which they claim to care so much about in school.
Mm-hmm.
It's just completely erased. It's just the washed against the unwashed.
Yeah.
So they're just going
Really,
to. I mean, if you even go and you're not going to put a kid in timeout and embarrass them. They have all these rules about not embarrassing children and doing all this stuff. Yet all of that goes out the window when it comes to this.
Yeah.
So I wanna jump in there about the police topic that you mentioned, Ayla. I think we need to understand that they're playing a bigger chess game. And if we're able to step outside of the individual battlefields and then see the overall picture, I think it helps us strategize better and then also not get so consumed in the individual fights. We have to fight the individual fights because it needs to be fought. But understanding the bigger picture, there is a concerted effort to constantly put civilians face to face with the police.
Yes.
So this works to their advantage in two ways. One is it creates that separation and animosity between the police is there to protect us. The police is supposed to protect our Constitution and our freedoms. That is why the police is there. The police is not there to follow unconstitutional rules made up by tyrants to suppress the citizens. So we need to be able to separate this. The police, actually, it is unconstitutional for the United States police to wear masks. They can't be masked up. This is not a masked police force. But they are rule followers. They're following the rules. So they're giving them these rules. So I think there needs to be some awakening amongst the police force as well. But there needs to be some awakening amongst the civilians, because we are one with the police. We are not enemies with the police. We don't want to come into confrontations with the police. So that's one place we need to understand the game and try to fight that whenever we see that strategy being pushed on us. And number two, they're trying to create fear, right? A lot of people don't want to be in a confrontation with the police. So they believe that if they put the police in the way, like if they put the fear of being arrested or being fined or being approached by the police, you're just going to cower down and comply to something that you wouldn't otherwise comply with.
Right.
So Ayla knows very well about that.
And that's the thing with this child. The mom said she was talking to her child who had nothing to do with this, but was on the bus. And what the child's opinion was is, well, I guess that's what happens. So there's a third component here, is we're training our children to accept a police state.
Yep.
This is what happens. Police just pull your bus over and drag you off for if any reason they decide. Because you were next to a person who might have tested positive, because maybe you didn't wear your mask correctly. And so that getting used to that police state, our children will think that that's normal. And that's why
the fear that it creates in the other children watching this child be made an example of. Like, they will never think about taking their mask off ever again, because now this is a traumatic incident that has happened not only to that child who was taken off the bus, but to every single person that witnessed that happen. So I think that, whenever you think about the word mandate, and, this is something that we can all speak to and understand, because even when it comes to the topic of vaccines, we're not trying to make decisions for other parents. When it comes to masks, we're not trying to make decisions for other people. Everyone has to do what they feel comfortable with. But at the end of the day, when choice is removed and you're told that you have to, it's a means to an end. In order to attend public school, you have to do A, B, C, and D. I mean, look at what Cuomo is doing in New York. He has said straight up that the New York public schools are going to become like mass vaccination sites, and your child's participation in school on that day is considered consent. It's implied consent. Just by you sending your child to school to receive the constitutionally, they're obligated to give you this education, you are implying consent to go ahead and get a vaccine. So this is where we're headed. And this is why the four of us and so many more people, we have the Wizard of Oz behind the scenes, there's so many people that are working tirelessly. But I think that the whole point of this live tonight is to recognize that we're just four squares. You know, we're just four squares on the screen. If we didn't have hundreds of people behind each of the four squares, thousands of people behind each of the four squares, we would be nothing. We would just be four crazy ladies who almost set their house on fire and drink a lot of wine at night, try to keep up life, and nothing would happen. So, you know, people constantly saying, thank you so much for what you do. And I'm thankful that there's gratitude. It is a lot of work, and we do all work full-time, unpaid jobs for the most part doing this advocacy work. It takes over every part of your life. But I think the payment is freedom for our children, freedom for ourselves. But we could not do this without each and every single one of you. So everybody that is in New Jersey, if you called in from another state, you sent one email, made one phone call, know that this celebration is about you. We should have had wine for the celebration.
Yeah. It's a celebration.
It's a celebration.
Just bringing that all around, like we were fighting this bill. The bill we're fighting is a police state. We're fighting this for our kids and for us not to be police. You know, and that's really important for us to understand that it should not be normal for a mom. I just shared that video today. I don't know if you guys saw it on my page. For a mom to be arrested in the grocery store buying salad because she didn't have a mask on while saying she had a medical exemption. This is very important. She said, I have a medical exemption. The grocery store people around her said, she has a medical exemption. She's already said this. Right. And the police officer threw her into the salad, threw her into the vegetables, handcuffed her, didn't care whether she said she had a medical exemption at all, didn't read her rights, didn't tell her why he was taking her. He didn't say anything. He just said, you are guilty of trespass. Guilty of trespass. That's what this bill is. They want to make us guilty of trespass. So what just happened to her on that video could happen to any one of us. And we would just be in a police state, and we took her, even though other people in the store were filming it and saying, please leave her alone. You shouldn't be arresting her. She has a medical exemption. She already explained that. Like, she wasn't being combative. She's like, I have an exemption. Please. And she asked the police officer, she said, please, I'll leave. Please don't do this. I'll leave. I'll walk out. He wouldn't let her. And he didn't care.
How do you educate our police? Christina asked that question. Do you guys have any thoughts about, or have you had any conversations? I know anytime I'm at a rally, I make sure to go over, and like I was in Middletown and I went over to the police there and I said, just so you know, this bill with the masks is out there, and guess who's going to be responsible to enforce it? You guys. Yeah. So as concerned as I am about, you know, being someone that doesn't believe that masks are safe or effective, you need to be concerned about this bill passing, because you're going to have to break your oath to the Constitution in order to carry out this tyrannical ridiculousness. But I think that we need a more organized approach in making our police officers feel that they're supported by the people, because there has to be a lot of fear there to go against, you know, the upper echelons of the government and within the police department itself. So anything that you've done that's an effective strategy?
I feel like they should stand on. I mean, when they were arresting people in front of me at Ian's gym, like they arrested people for just working out at that protest, right? So the gym was open and the people were just working out. As they exited the building, they were considered guilty of working out, and so they just started arresting everyone that walked out the door. And, you know, so at first they were just letting them get in their cars, pull them over and arresting them. And then they just started arresting them right in front of the building to make a statement. And I said to the police officer, I said, you know, this is unconstitutional. You need to stand down. You should be standing down right now. This is not correct. And I know you know that in your heart, because I know they're good people. I know they signed up to be police officers to protect us, to be there for us. And they're heroes. I mean, they save lives. And if you're in danger, that's who you call. And yet they were arresting innocent people. And just like, I mean, I said to some legislators yesterday, and I said, listen, every time I'm arrested and tased and handcuffed and thrown to the ground because I'm trying to shop for food and water for my children, I'm going to hold you accountable when we have to go on Tucker and Hannity and Fox and say, well, yeah, I was actually just arrested violently because I was shopping for my children so they could have dinner. And these are the legislators that voted for this bill. And I'm going to name them. And I'm going to name each and every single one of them because they should be held accountable. How dare they try to do this to us? They are responsible, and they should be held responsible. And we, you know,
I think when you look at it, like I was on a radio show last night and the woman said something about we hire these people. And, you know, it's not a formal process of like sitting down and having an interview. But by voting or not voting, you're allowing these people to get into our layer, to get into a place where they have power. And I think that we've shifted as a society to think that we're the ones that don't have the power, that the power lies in those buildings, and somehow we're not worthy enough to be involved in that process. And we really have to get away from that and start to look at it like these people are our employees in the sense that our tax dollars are contributing to a society that not the four of us don't want to live in this society. And there are hundreds of thousands of people that are coming on this live that are feeling the same exact way. So why are we basically having our money taken from us without our permission or consent and put into systems and programs that are broken and are not serving the interests of the people? Like, this is the mindset that we need to start to take on as citizens of the greatest country in the world, the country, lands of the free, home of the brave. Like, that's what we need to really, really let it sink in and understand what's at stake. So I think the vigilance needs to continue, because just because we have this win, it's a battle. We won a battle, just like we won the Battle of Trenton. We won this battle for now, but we are still at war. So let's talk about what we need to do moving forward, because there's good legislation that we want to start. You know, I had a conversation with one of my friends, Susan, today, and Pamira, Ayla, and I know you guys were all on that call. And we were talking about how we need to build the world that we want to live in while we're fighting against the stuff that we don't want to have happen. We need to try to, I know it's like splitting ourselves in two halves, but we need to put some attention on manifesting what it is we want to have happen. And there's some bills out there that need support, because these legislators, I mean, I was shocked when I looked at S2814 and A4453, A4147 and S2482 that limits the executive order for 14 days. There are a shit ton of sponsors on this bill, and yet it did not move anywhere. It just was like dead in the water. So one of our calls to action is to revive that.
It would move. Coughlin promised us that he was going to put it on the Assembly. Sweeney promised us that he was going to put it on the agenda for the Senate.
We have to hold them accountable right now.
So we need to show a ton of support for them to want to go up against Murphy, because Murphy is acting as king, and they know his executive orders are very powerful. And so we get a ton of support for these bills, A4147 and S2482, the Senate and Assembly bills, then both houses will feel like they can go up against Murphy, as well as the constitutional amendment that was put forward by Senator Panaccio, and I don't know who else backed it with him, but that would need to go on next year's ballot so they could actually go into our New Jersey Constitution to limit every single governor's emergency order powers. It would just be in there. So these are two ways, but we do have that email from Stand for Health Freedom that we can share.
Yes, we will.
For the legislative bills. But of course, we just saw the other day that Murphy can veto things, right? Things that have both houses supporting it. So we need to show overwhelming public support, I think, for these bills.
Can you talk a little bit about the bill that we were speaking about this morning, just to highlight how sick, twisted, and selfish he is when it comes to giving the people, Governor Murphy, giving the people what they need as far as the restaurant industry?
I don't have the bill number with me, but the fact is that he's continuously killing New Jersey's economy and the restaurants. How many times has he shut down the restaurants, and their capacity? He's paused them, reopening their capacity. So right before they were going to open indoor dining, he gave the go ahead and then shut them down after everybody ordered all that food and did all their advertising a couple days ahead. So they lost all that money in addition to already being shut down for months. And now there was I think this was it was a funding bill for the restaurants for
It's a $30 million funding support for the restaurants that have been affected by the COVID inconveniences, and it was bipartisan, and Murphy basically single-handedly shut it down, vetoed it. So clearly, he doesn't want New Jersey to come to a place of comfort. He wants New Jersey to constantly suffer. He's suppressing. He's just a pretend man who's only trying to hurt New Jersey every chance he gets. So
he has
he's caused it because of the number of cases, which we know are much lower than what anything was in April and March.
Right. The cases, now we're just looking at case counts. Deaths are down, hospitalizations are down. We're just basing everything on case count. And now he has put a new target that there must be 0 deaths in New Jersey.
Right.
0 cases.
Immortality to him. We are not accountable to prove immortality to the governor to get our rights, to keep our rights. We don't even have to fight to get our rights. You should think that our rights. They are our non-given rights from birth, but we have to fight them to keep them. But do not think that Murphy gives you your rights or the legislature gives you your rights. We own the rights, but they are trying to take it away. So for those who are trying to take it away, we have to fight. And for those who are helping us defend it, we have to show them the same type of passionate, massive support that we are able to put forth when we're fighting the bad bills. So these good guys who are in there, they need our support, and they are not getting it. They need to have thousands of phone calls going in to all of these legislators, all of us saying, please, assemblyman, please, senator, whoever your district senator and district assemblyman is, you have to call them first and foremost because you voted for them, or there is a chance that you might vote for them. They will listen to you. If I'm living in District 27, you have to go online, look up your legislative district, and call your legislative representatives and tell them, I live in your district. I'm a voter in your district. I want you to support Bill A4147 and its Senate Companion Bill S2482 to limit the governor's ability to enact emergency measures beyond a certain time period. He's constantly giving himself God powers without any checks and balances. And this is not democratic, and we have to stop it, but we have to support the good legislators who are trying to push it through, and they don't have support. Unfortunately, this is a democratic state, so a lot of the democratic legislators are voting party line. So I want to make a point right there. So there are 2 sources of power for a legislator. One of them comes from the people. The people have to vote them in, regardless of how many sponsors they have, how much money they get from big industry and this and that. If people do not vote them in, they don't ever get into that seat. Now, money helps because they can use that money to campaign and to make promises and to travel, go hold events, and then do things. But once they're in that seat, then they get sucked into another whirlwind. This is the party line politics. And then there is always the party line agenda. And then at that point, then their purpose becomes how to keep that seat. And a lot of times, voting along the party lines and going with the party line agenda becomes their way of securing that seat. And then it's the balancing act. If the voice and the power of the people is stronger, they will go with the people, because then their fear of losing that seat or the promise of keeping that seat becomes linked with the people who gave them that power in the first place, who can take it back if they want to take it back. Whereas if we are not there to support them or to fight them, whichever we are trying to do based on the situation, based on the legislator, then they have bigger wins and gains politically or financially from the party line alliances then they will go with that. So we have to realize how powerful we are and how much stronger we need to be. Our voice and strength and power needs to be reminded to them that our strength behind them is stronger than their party line alliances. We need to twist that, turn that around and make it right. Right now, the balances are off. So they use our votes and our power to get into the seats and then swap it for party line alliance. And then all of a sudden, you have all these Democrats voting the same way, regardless of what's right for the people. This is not correct. And I'm saying this as a registered Democrat. I'm running for office as a registered Democrat. So I'm not going to poo-poo on the Democratic Party just for being Democrats, but I have to expose what they're doing for what it is, and we have to realize it to fix it. And the Democrats are on a bad path right now because they have sold out the people for party line agendas, and they're going for things that are against the people just to keep that party line support and the monies that the head of the assembly is promising them, or the head of the Senate is promising them, or head of a certain committee is promising them, or their caucus is promising them, or whatever threats they're getting. If you don't do this, you lose your spending monies and you lose your allowances to do wonderful things in your districts. We have to raise our voices and show them that we are there as a power behind them. So all these good legislators need to feel us behind them, and all the other ones who have gone to the dark side need to hear from us that, hey, when there's a good bill that resonates with the people will come out and support it. So this is the time to do that. Let's use the same passion that we're using to fight the bad bills. Let's put it all out now. We have to stop Murphy. If we don't stop Murphy, this is going all the way to mandatory adult vaccinations, or you can't go grocery shopping in 3 months.
Hell yeah. That's
Let's
exactly
see where this is going.
And people think, oh, it could never happen here. It could never happen in America. And it's already happening. People are getting thrown off of airplanes. People are being tasered and pulled out of stores. Children are being ripped off of buses. I mean, it's like when June in The Handmaid's Tale has flashbacks to all the signs and signals that were there, and everybody just kind of was like, well, the Constitution is suspended right now, but it'll come back. We can't lull into that false sense of security. So we're going to talk action alerts because I think it's really important that we keep the momentum going. And here's what I know, people. I know that people are really good in times of crisis. We have proven over and over again that when there is a 4-alarm fire, we are showing up in mass. We are calling, we are emailing, we are tweeting, we are blowing it up every possible way that we can. And that is wonderful, and that is admirable, and that is why we've been able to hold it down in New Jersey for as long as we have. But the truth is that we need to get into a mindset that advocacy for our children, for our families, has to become part of our daily, weekly, every other day conversation. We need to do 3 small things a day to just be able to keep it going. I've never gone to a political fundraiser in my life up until the last year because I never needed to. I never thought I had any interest. But you need to have a relationship with your legislators. You need to have a relationship with the 2 assembly people, the senator in your district. They need to know your name. When I call my senator's office, they're like, oh, hello, Stephanie. They know who I am because I'm constantly calling. That's the kind of thing that you want. They work for us. So we need to make sure when it comes to the mask mandate bill, S2814 and A4453, that we have a continuous conversation. Because one of the things that we suspect is that it was taken off of the agenda because they want to make amendments to the language to include medical exemptions. And I just want to say to people that is not an acceptable amendment ever. There should be no mask mandate. As a matter of fact, the only legislation that they should be drafting is that mask mandates are unconstitutional and illegal, and it should be up to the individual person to decide what they feel most comfortable with, because there is no science that shows that masks are safe or effective just for personal use in the amount of times that people are using them and to prevent the spread of COVID. There's nothing out there. So when you're making your phone calls and your emails, because we want you to continue to have these phone calls, just remind them, thank you for taking it off the agenda. Please keep it off. And we do not accept languaging that says medical exemptions are included in this bill. It's not okay.
If we accept a medical exemption, and that's what we were talking to legislators yesterday, and they were asking us, like, would you consider if we put an amendment in here that it would be, a medical exemption? And it's like, no, because do you know why? Because who decides whose medical exemption is valid? Is it the store clerk? Is it the manager? Is it the owner of the store? Is it the police officer that they've called on you because they just don't want to deal with you and they don't care about you saying you have a medical exemption? Is it the judge when you go to trial? Does he decide if you're medical exemption? Do you have to show paperwork? The slippery slope that we get into if we say, oh, we have a medical exemption, is the same thing that we dealt with religious exemption, that we have to be in fear, that they'll take it away any day. And even if we have it, like the medical exemptions for vaccines, who can get one?
No one can find it.
The right one. And we don't know how that could go. How would a police officer, who would give them the duty to decide whether or not we are medically exempt? That is not their job. And it's not the job of the judge either. And it's not the job of the manager of the Quick Check. So we do not accept that. And even if they took jail time away, I'm telling you, it would still lead to jail time. Because as soon as you start calling police on people and there's Karens and there's aggravation and there's tension, it can lead to people falling. Now it's assault. And it's just a police state. So there are no amendments acceptable. This bill is not acceptable in any form whatsoever. And now when you're calling, you need to say that. You say, we do not accept medical exemptions. I don't care if you take the jail time off. This is about making us criminals and calling the police on us. And every Karen at every Walmart would be able to call the police on us. That is not acceptable.
So there's a named Karen right now. I have
Sorry,
Karen's. No, but it's so true. Everyone's Karen. I love it.
All the Karens, I love you. It's a beautiful name.
So when you call and oppose, just say, and while you're at it, why don't you write some legislation against mandating masks at the same time? They should be writing good legislation that people actually want.
So at this point, we want New Jersey to open up.
Yeah.
And there are legislators who are out there speaking for this. So every time we call, we have to remind them, if you really want to help the people of New Jersey needs to open up now. Without restriction. We don't need any more restrictions. We cannot be held to this golden standard of nobody will ever test positive ever again for anything. The more you test, the more you're going to find things. And that is not my accountability. Living a normal human life is not pegged to this requirement of a society free of positive test results, free of germs, free of viruses. This has gone on way too long. The whole game is over. It needs to be removed. So every time we call, we need to ask them, what are you doing to open up New Jersey? Stop pushing the agenda on us. We all see what's going on.
Right.
And we don't agree with it. So
they need to hear those voices because they're hearing the other side. When I talked to legislators yesterday, someone actually, and I think we said this in the live the other night with Sharon, someone actually said to me, well, what are you going to do? Murphy has a 60-70% approval rating. No, he doesn't. That's a lie. And our legislators are saying it to each other. One of them said it to me. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Anna knows. We found out that it's a lie. It's a 70% approval rating. It's a closed college poll. One college, the college happened to be a pharmaceutical college. One college, they took a poll. It was closed. It was not open to anyone. He is not popular. He's not a 60-70% approval rating. And so we have to do what he says because the people are with him. So like Primera said, when we call, we say the truth. Like, no, we want our state.
It's more propaganda, and the legislators are actually believing it. So
you have to look at his Twitter feed or his Facebook feed to see how many people are just ragging on this man. I mean, it is like a war zone on Twitter.
Yes.
It's a war zone. So that's why you can't believe anything that they tell you.
No.
So we need to promote A4147 and S2482 to limit the governor's executive order powers. We have a Stand for Health Freedom email, one-click email, which I believe connects to Twitter, does the whole fantastic thing that Stand for Health Freedom is able to do. And they get...
Innovative Parenting previously had sent one action alert out earlier in the summer. So keep an eye peeled. They're going to revive it and they're going to send it out again. But I want to also caution everyone, don't just do that and be all like, okay, I'm done now, because it doesn't work that way. That is a nice tool. It is a mass quick action tool. However, these individual phone calls that we made it happen for us this week. I got on the phone with the secretary of the Judiciary Committee, and she said, Tamira, I'm so overwhelmed. Over 300 people signed up in less than a day, voicing, and she was going to say opposition, and then she held herself, and she logging their position. I'm like, oh, okay. And then there is about 30 to 40 people who want to testify in person, and that's when they had already cut it off. Yeah. And they not cut it off. That was going to keep going, and it was like she said, it's going to take me a while to get the emails out, the responses out, because like I need to respond to all of these. I need to gather all the people. So that makes a huge difference. Those individual calls, individual emails makes the difference. So please use the convenient tools of convenience, but don't leave it there, because we have to take it to the next level now. Mm-hmm. It's easy for them to delete incoming emails if they all have the same template. They can be like, oh, it's a template, delete. If you can show up in their office, pick up the phone, write your own version, call again, and ask questions. Put them on the spot. They respond. They have to respond to us. They're accountable to us.
Right. They all knew we were going. They watch social media. So if you don't think they're on all of our accounts watching us, doing what we're doing, they are watching the Facebook, and they saw people saying, I got to take off work. I got to get a babysitter. Okay, I'm bringing my kids. They saw the people starting to say, oh, okay, we're coming. They knew there was going to be a crowd and a huge one.
We did it with the flu vaccine mandate bill. Like, we showed up, it wasn't even on the agenda. So it just goes to show them that we're powerful, and when we need to come together, we come together. And that's the most amazing thing about this group. I mean, I say it all the time. This movement has literally wreaked havoc on my entire life, but literally, like the greatest. Yeah. But some of the greatest gifts that I've gotten from being in this movement are the people on this call, the people that I speak to every day, the connections that I have made. Yeah. So you have to take the good with the bad and recognize that by being part of the action alerts, by being part of the events, by coming down to Trenton, by doing all these things, coming to fundraisers, you're becoming part of a community. And I think one of the most important things that we have right now is that feeling of isolation, being alone, because our opinion is probably not popular opinion. I think that there's a lot of people that would be on this live saying something different and disagreeing with, maybe not mandating masks, but believing that masks work. I know in my own family, I have people. So it can be a really isolating situation. And I think that it's so important to make sure that you're connected with a community of like minds and like hearts, because in those dark times where you feel like you can't get out of bed, or you set the house on fire, or you wash an entire load of laundry, 7th generation gallon crap in the machine, and you don't find out until it's done. Yeah, that was me today. You have support. You have people to, have your back, to be able to talk to and have conversations with. So getting involved in this community is, as stressful as it is, it's the best thing that I've ever done, because I've met so many people. So we need to continue to have, community events where it's not just rallies, create some fun, network, get our kids together. We have that Boo Bash through Urban Global Health Alliance coming up on Saturday, October 24th. I'm going to post the invitation. So take a look at that. If you have littles and you want to go, it's BYOB. There's going to be a lot of fun activities. Tamira's looking for it right now. I can see it. She's on a mission. She's going to post it in the comments. But get involved with the community. It's super important. We don't want to only get together when there's a 4-alarm fire and an emergency. We want to create these relationships because that's what keeps us strong as a community. So we're not going to Trenton tomorrow, but I don't want anyone to be lulled into a false sense of security. And I think we've all expressed the importance of staying vigilant, the importance of getting familiar with the New Jersey legislative website, being able to navigate around the basic things, looking at the committees. I'm happy to walk you through. I'm sure anybody on this call would be happy to walk you through really, really important stuff. If you want to be a warrior mom or a warrior dad or a warrior grandpa or grandma, like the most important thing you can do is know what's going on, not just on a federal level, but it's so much more important to know what's happening on a state level, because unfortunately a lot of these rules and laws and restrictions are at a state level. I spoke to someone in South Carolina yesterday and they are not dealing with anything that we're dealing with. It's like pretty much normal. Yeah, there's some people still walking around with masks because that's their choice. That's what they feel that they want to do. But kids are back in school 5 days a week. Like, it is normal life. People are living. We are existing here in New Jersey, and we as the people of the state need to make it abundantly clear that we've about had enough. So it's clear that people are starting to activate and see the importance. And I do credit our rally 3 weeks ago and really getting people activated again and remembering that spirit of camaraderie, because I think for a while we were all kind of like just in our own little corners. So keep an eye out. Make sure that you're still calling and emailing S2814-84453. We are a no. We are a no to any medical exemptions, to taking off jail time. There is no amendment that would make this bill an acceptable bill that we want to go to a table for a vote. So we need to keep hammering that home, because just because it's not on the agenda does not mean that they're not working behind the scenes talking about how they could make it something that would work.
Yes. Nothing will make it constitutionally acceptable for a police state to ease in.
People asked us today if
Nothing.
we thought that there's a chance that they'd sneak it in. I spoke to my senator. I know Ayla, Anna, and Pamira all spoke to people that we have relationships with, and the feedback that we got was that this bill is nowhere near ready to go up for a vote. The feedback that they had and the outreach that they had regarding the opposition, especially going into an election year, people are very hesitant to touch this bill. So that's a good thing, but that doesn't mean that the work ends here. It means we continue to plant these seeds. I think personally that these legislators need an education about the science behind masks, or the lack of science, I should say, behind masks.
Zero science. There is not one study not one.
To go.
Who say there is no study that says that masks protect you from that has never been done. It's not been done. It's zero. So you're making legislation. What gives you the authority to make legislation on science that doesn't exist? It's not. It just doesn't exist. It never existed. So how can you mandate it? You can make a suggestion. You can say, well, we think that. Well, our opinion is yes, but you cannot make a law based on nothing, based on zero. First, they have no authority to do it, and then you're basing it on no science whatsoever.
Nothing.
But I do mention something that has nothing to do with this bill, because it was another thing today. Guys, if you've moved, they do not forward your voting ballot. So you are considered undeliverable. So today, Mom sent me pictures and pictures and pictures of thousands and thousands and thousands of ballots sitting in boxes at the Monmouth County election office. There are thousands of them, and they're all considered undeliverable. And so their excuse, what they're saying is that, well, people have moved and we are legally not able to forward these ballots. So if you haven't received your ballot and you've moved in the last 4 years, you need to call and stop checking the mailbox. It's not coming. Call and get your ballot.
Right.
We are lagging behind. Democrats have sent and this is for all local elections. Not all Dems are bad. So local elections, Board of Ed, Dems, Republicans, we all need to get our votes in. But Republicans are lagging behind to like 2/3 less than Democrats have their votes in. And I don't know what these votes are, but if you've moved, you will not get a ballot. It will not be forwarded. You need to call the Board of Elections and have them send you one, and they will not call you and alert you that they're not forwarding your ballot.
Right.
And
You need to call your county clerk and let them know. The county clerk's office is supposed to be sending them out. The Board of Elections is who's going to collect them and do the counting. So please find out who your county clerk is. As Ayla said, don't wait at home checking your mailbox. We're getting very close to the deadline. And don't wait for the 3rd to put it in the mail or to show up at the poll. Go a couple of days early, please, so that you give yourself a little bit of a buffer room. You don't want to be cut off because you didn't get a time stamped before the deadline.
Absolutely.
You want to be counted. And always try to use a secure lockbox instead of the mail, instead of the post office.
First choice is to go to your local Board of Elections. I saw something yesterday on the news that in California, someone threw a paper on fire into the drop box in a California location, and hundreds of ballots were damaged to the point where they couldn't be accepted. And the news is like, well, if you voted at this drop box in the last couple of weeks or last couple of days, you might want to find out about your ballot and track if it's been received. Like, so, I'm actually going to have Piera come on and talk to us about voting on another day, but I think that it's really important to make sure we have possession of our ballot as long as possible, and that we're handing it, whatever the last step is for that ballot to reach, we want to eliminate as much of the handling as possible and make sure that we're submitting that ballot to the last stop before it's counted. So keep that in mind. And we're getting to the top of the hour, so I want to close it out and just thank you, ladies.
Can I mention 2 things before we go? Since we got into the topic of elections, I did do a live video, step-by-step instructions on voting with all the differences of like how does it work, the lockbox versus the different locations, county clerk, Board of Elections, whatever. Please watch it, find it. I'll try to link it into the comments. So if you have any questions, or share it with anyone who has questions, that will give you a lot of information. And then in terms of supporting the legislators that are on our side, Senator Bucco is the only New Jersey senator going up for re-election this year. And he's in a fierce competition right now. He always sides with us and votes for bodily integrity, autonomy, constitutional rights, and on the side of the people. We have to help Senator Bucco. He's running in District 26. If you want to volunteer to make phone calls for him and support his campaign, I dropped in a link of how you can sign up to help. Please do it ASAP. Right, time is running out. There are limited slots. You can even make phone calls from your home, from your own comfort. And if you know anyone in his district, please connect with them. Make sure they come out to vote. That's the biggest problem. People not voting is a big problem. We need people to vote. And then Rosemary Becky is another one. He's not an incumbent right now, but she has promised to uphold our constitutional liberties. So when you see Rosemary Becky on your ballot, that's a name you may want to vote for. I can't tell people who to vote for, but use your conscience. If these topics that we're discussing tonight are important to you, she may be a candidate you may wish to support.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it's important to know who you're voting for. If you have questions about a person, Google, look things up, reach out to one of us. We're trying to be as plugged in as possible in the midst of everything else that we're dealing with. So we'll do the best that we can.
I just wanted to add to the Premier's point. A lot of moms were reaching out about the Cory Booker race and voting for Meta. I have spoken to him personally, and I know personally spoken to him 3 occasions, and he did come to our rallies, and he's asked to come to more rallies, and he is making his rounds. He's trying to beat Booker. He has said unequivocally he is for medical choice. He is for religious freedom. He is for medical exemptions and religious exemptions with vaccines. He said it. He said it to me. He said it in writing. He said it personally. So if that is something that matters to you, then you don't have a choice with who you're voting for, because obviously Cory Booker is not for our movement. He's not for choice or freedom. He has to vote lockstep with his party. And I know a lot of people have questions about Rick and the race with Singh and Trisha and all of that. Well, what it comes down to right now is he is for our movement. He has stated that, and we will hold his feet to the fire if he gets in. But that's your choice right there. And I want to make sure that we say that, because we stayed out of it politically, but we need to say the truth. He's told me personally, and I shared that with Stephanie. And, you know, we've talked about that. He said he's for medical choice and religious exemptions and letting the mothers and fathers make their decisions for their children in this state of New Jersey. So
important. So important. And you need to have those conversations with anyone that's in your district, anybody that you see that's up for election. We need to have full transparency when it comes to this issue, because it's becoming, you know, one of those hot button issues where you have voting blocks. I mean, we're talking about being up there with like gun rights and abortion and all those other things. Like it's something that's a huge, huge issue. And the one blessing of coronavirus is that vaccine safety is being, you know, definitely questioned when it comes to COVID-19. And for people that are slowly starting to wake up to the evils of vaccines, I would highly encourage you to take those critical thinking questions that you have regarding the COVID vaccine and to apply them to the entire childhood schedule, because the horrific things that we're hearing right now, they happen all the time. The only reason you're hearing about them is because they're deeming this vaccine Trump's vaccine, and they're trying to discredit it like he's in the lab formulating it somehow. But, you know, they're doing us a huge favor, because at least now people are starting to question. And it's the first time I've heard so many people questioning. So we have a huge opportunity. We have to stay involved in the conversation. Give yourself a break if you need it. If you need to take some time to breathe, like Ayla said at the beginning, take some time to breathe, to reboot, drink a cup of tea, sit in a hot tub if you have one. I highly recommend it. Sit on a beach if you have one. I highly recommend it. Essential oils, whatever you can do to get yourself.
I'm going to your house, Stephanie.
Come on down. I'm going to do all those things. But at the end of the day, make sure that you're doing the work, because it shows over and over again how much our voices make a difference. So I want to send a huge heartfelt thank you to the two ladies and the third one that dropped off for being on, for being, you know, with me all the time and working. We work together so beautifully. We had these amazing calls. We were like strategizing and trying to come up with the best thing. All of us are behind the scenes doing this all the time. So we're constantly looking at what is in the best interest of our movement. So know that we have that at heart all the time. But we need you. Otherwise, we're just 3 or 4 squares. So keep up with the great work. Thank you so much. Keep watching the calendar for S2814, A4453. We will definitely keep you posted. And let's get A4147 and S2482 on the agenda. Let's get it some legs. So that we could end the tyrannical reign of King Murphy and get back to living as usual, because 2020 has pretty much been a year of existing, and I know I'm about done. So I want to get back to life as normal, you know, be able to breathe in the fresh air without people yelling at me and asking me questions, have my son go back to school 5 days a week so that I can like think straight, all those things, not like the house on fire, you know.
Yes, and thank you, mamas. Thank you again. Thank you, dads. Thank you, granddads, uncles, aunts, everyone out there who called, emailed, tweeted, signed up. The reason we're not going to be in Trenton tomorrow, and thank God I didn't want to be in Trenton tomorrow. I'm going to do other stuff in my life. You know, like, thank you, because you won this battle. Like, it's still a war. We still have to be vigilant, like everyone is saying. But you did this. You did this. So, hey, applause to us.
I love you, ladies.
Good.
Thank you, thank you. And for all of you watching, continue to be bold, be brave, be the change that you wish to see in the world. Stand up, show up, rise up, and let's continue to protect our medical freedoms. We are warriors, and we are making a huge difference. So make sure that you're signed on for New Jersey for Freedom. Sign on to my email list. I put it in the comments. I'll be sending out a templated email with some studies about masks so you can use them to your advantage to help educate our legislators, because they clearly need an education. They're not getting the education that they need. And stay tuned. We will definitely bring you updates as we need to, but we need all of you to have your eyes wide open. So thank you so much. Sending you all love and light. I love you ladies so much. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you all. Keep praying. Keep the vibration up.
Yes.